Matt Duty here again for episode 5 of She-Hulk. Boy, have we got an episode. Right, so it starts off, right? So, there's an advert that comes on straight away. It's Titania.
Okay, you're not done.
She-Hulk by Titania. Got perfumes and lipsticks, and it's She-Hulk by Titania.
Okay, you're not done.
So if you didn't understand that this is She-Hulk by Titania.
Okay, you're not done.
Right, and it's constantly on and on about it's She-Hulk by Titania. Okay, so then she's in a car driving to work, and somehow overnight she's got billboards everywhere, she's made an advert, she's done all this, right, overnight, because there's no time frame in any of this. Right, so then Chad walks in and he's like, I've got all your products. Right, so not only does the adverts have got, says She-Hulk, but has Titania's face on it, and the adverts constantly say, sorry, my chickens are playing in the background, and the adverts are constantly saying She-Hulk by Titania. For some reason, Chad buys a load of products. Where did he buy these products? So he bought the products off Titania to sell. Why? Don't know. Don't know. He's a dumb white male. What can we say? And then he goes to tell her how trademarks work. He's like, well, you should have trademarked it. And Jen's like, oh, and puts her face in the pillow. Because, you know, as a lawyer, she doesn't know anything about law for some reason. Right, so Jen then goes with her assistant to confront Titania at her mega store, because then it's like, you know, so overnight she's built a mega store and got all these products. It takes time and effort to get all these products up and running. You can't do it overnight. So what kind of time frame is this? Who knows? Don't know. Don't worry about it, just consume. So then there's an awkward conversation with Titania and Jen where she's like, back to the line, little girl, and all this, and basically she's like, oh, you stole my product, you stole my name, blah blah blah. So anyway, they're in the office, right? So it cuts to them in the office, and basically they're waffling on about, you know, about the She-Hulk thing, that someone else has took the She-Hulk name and blah blah, and basically Jen then mops out with, ooh, I can walk home at night with wearing headphones now that I'm She-Hulk. So far from reality this is just unhinged, absolutely unhinged. So, and then cuts to the assistant. I don't know what this assistant does. Every time you see her, she's just like, I don't know, she's either Googling rubbish or getting food and stuff like that. She doesn't, I don't know what it is she actually does. So Paul comes to her and says, Iron Man 3 are out. I want to buy these trainers. There's one per customer. I want you to come with me. She's like, I'll do that as long as you do a favor for me. So of course he's like, yeah, don't worry about it, we'll do that. And he's like, I've got a trainer, man. So now, you know, Pug was one of the strongest male characters in it, and they've just ruined him for this episode because, you know, why not? You can't have any competent white men. So basically it's like, I have a tread guy who does my shoes. Right, okay, bear this in mind, that he has a guy who sells stuff and gets it for him. It does shoes. The assistant then asks him, can he get superhero clothes? And he's like, yeah, my guy can get this, right? Which he can't, someone else does, but again, poor writing. So, you know, they go on about making it, right? So then Pug and the assistant and then drive to this shop, a boba shop. Why not? And he's like, what are you on about? Here, this is a boba shop. And he's like, well, my guy said it's a front for superhero clothes. Right, okay. So, you know, surely, you know, Iron Man Tony Stark, you know, would have solved this problem of clothing for superheroes, and surely there's a better way of doing it, but surely not. It's going to be in a boba shop. So they walk in, and the punk guy's like, my man sent me. I'm here for the clothes. Wink, wink, and all this, yeah. And then the woman speaks Chinese. Of course, we know Marvel and China. We know what's going on there, but we're not going to say anything because, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, so the guy's like, did you just ask me in Chinese? I'm not Chinese. And she was like, oh, I said we're not the cops. So then he proceeds to go to the back, and then some gets round the corner and opens up a curtain and says, come this way. You want superhero clothes? He opens up a cupboard and he has the Avengers. So he's selling knockoff clothes. So the question is why? Anyway, we're moving on. So they're all like, oh, I thought you did actual superhero clothes. And basically, you know, he makes them buy these knockoff clothes and is basically like, yeah, I know the guy. Don't know what, you know, don't know whether it's in the same building or what, don't know. There's no linkage, don't care, just consume. And anyway, they're in this elevator, they're dressed up in all this stupid clothing, like, you know, got an Thor's hammer and Captain America's shield and the Avengers clothing. Why not? They're in the elevator and they press the button and the guy's like, what do you want? And they turn around and say, oh, you know, we've got a client that needs some clothes. And he goes, well, who referred you? And they go, oh, Titania. And he's like, you know, I can see that you're faking it. So they go, oh, okay. We're here for someone high on the list of the Avengers. Right, so you first lie to the guy, and then basically he lets him in on the second one. Why? Don't know, because obviously the first one was a lie, and if, you know, he didn't believe the Titania story, why would he believe the Avengers story? Don't worry about it, just consume. I mean, a boba shop, really? Selling knockoffs? I mean, it's just, you know, just ridiculous. There's no thought into this whatsoever. So anyway, it cuts back to Jen and Holloway, and Holloway's like, you know, I've seen billboards, you know, my man got it straight away. He understood that it wasn't She-Hulk selling the products, that it was Titania. It's not very difficult when you've got Titania's face all over everything, and she's saying She-Hulk by Titania.
Okay, you're not done.
It's not exactly rocket science, and She-Hulk's like, oh, it's not me. And basically, you know, it then cuts to, you know, he says, you ain't going to represent yourself, I'm going to get someone else to do it. And he goes to the black woman, and she's hilarious. I like, this is the funniest thing I've seen in the show, where she turned around and said, at least you aren't representing yourself.
Well, I'm surprised and relieved you aren't foolish enough to try to represent yourself, at least.
I mean, that is hilarious. It shows how crap Jen is, and, you know, this black woman's got sass, and I like this black woman. She's ace, you know what I mean? So it's then in the courtroom, and basically this black woman has all the evidence. I don't even know what her name is. I'm sorry I referred to her as black woman. I don't know what her name is. You know what I mean? Names in this show are really hard to remember. But anyway, she's got a whole stack of evidence that she hands to the judge. The only person that never seems to have any evidence is Jen, and she's supposed to be a lawyer, yet everybody else does. Puck did, you know. So anyway, oh, so they use examples of, you know, the news reports and everything, and then the other lawyer's like, hold on a minute, we've also got examples, and she's like, I'm not She-Hulk, I was named this, blah blah blah. And on the last clip, it was like, you know, it goes to the news article where basically she went on the news show the episode before, and she turns around and says, where did you get the name She-Hulk? And she said, oh, I didn't come up with it, the news channel that she was on came up with it. And then they asked her, where did she get the name from? And obviously they already knew, because they're the ones that gave her that name. And then basically proceeds to say, you know, oh, that name stuck with me. Okay, so we already know that she was using that name, of course. And basically then they were, you know, it goes back to the black woman moans how she dresses.
You need to dress like you respect yourself and not like a football player pleading no contest to a DUI.
You know what I mean? And then she's like, I have a guy. And then basically, you know, we're in the courtroom and basically he's like, oh, look, it's Shrek. You know what I mean? But let's be honest, the CGI on Shrek looks a hell of a lot better than what bloody She-Hulk does. And that's saying something. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's all that. I mean, so uninterested in this show. Right, so the assistant goes and meets the clothes man with Jen, and you know, and then basically she goes, "Oh, this is She-Hulk," and then the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, "I'm not She-Hulk, I'm Jen." Right, so you're in a court case over a trademarked name, that your name is She-Hulk, you're trying to fight that your name is She-Hulk, and the first time that you're in She-Hulk form and you refer to yourself as Jen. So again, you know, stupid writing, because obviously you'd be like, hey, you know, yeah, I'm She-Hulk. You need to refer yourself as She-Hulk, hence the whole problem. And this circles back later. But anyway, they're still pushing that She-Hulk is a part of the Avengers, which she probably will be because they're trying to make the Avengers all female. Why not? You know. And he goes, well, what kind of suit do you want? Do you want like flamethrowers and fire retardant and whatever? I don't really know. I wasn't really that switched on with listening, but again, you know, and she goes, well, I don't need all that, I'm a lawyer. And the guy laughs at her and says, oh, you're a lawyer? Ha, really? Ha, why is it funny to be a lawyer? Don't know. You know what I mean? And basically, like, I need a suit that can stretch from Jen to She-Hulk, and she shows him changing from She-Hulk to Jen, and he's like, ooh, oh no. And then he's like, oh, okay, first ever Hulk I get to dress. And then there's a weird scene where the clothes man basically then starts rubbing the metal abs, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna need a lot of fabric. Really?
Wool, we're going to need a lot of fabric.
I mean, it's cliche. Right, so we're then back to the office. And you remember the specimen man that was like, you're a fine specimen? No man ever says stuff like that. But anyway, specimen man's there talking to the black woman. Why? Don't know. Something to do with a superhuman law firm. God knows why. No one really explains why he's actually there speaking to her. He's not superhuman unless he has a problem with a superhuman, but again, don't know. Then they're on a bench talking for dinner, and she was like, I can't believe that the specimen man turned up. And she was like, hold on a minute, he's proof, he'll be evidence. Oh, why didn't I think of that? Of course not. As soon as they, you know, a cinnamon would be like, they're going to bring up the dates, which they do. So they go to the court scene, right? Listen to this, right? So the black woman's like, She-Hulk didn't use her name to exploit products and make financial gains from her name. But don't forget, she catfished men. So that's fine to catfish men, but you're not allowed to make products. Okay? Which is worse, catfishing men or making a living for yourself? You got to ask yourself that. So anyway, they bring up all the dates, which is just awful, awful scene. The black man's like, yeah, she's full of herself, blah, 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 even though he's full of himself. Brings on the weird homosexual guy who's blatantly homosexual, but he's like, I'm a writer, you see, yeah. And then brings up Specimen Man. And then finally, the feminist man. God, do you really have to have these back in it, really? But anyway, you know, the feminist man comes with a compelling argument, and basically they were like, oh, you know, it says there's two funny parts of this episode which actually made me laugh. Is the fact that the black woman was like, would you date Jen as Jen, or would you have only dated her as She-Hulk? And he was like, you know what, I wouldn't have dated Jen.
Would you have gone on the date if She-Hulk had instead presented as Jennifer Walters?
Look, I don't mean to be rude, but no.
And I'm like, yep, so you're proving the fact that it's okay to catfish men but not sell products. So this is how bad this show is. You know, it's fine to catfish. You can do what you want. That's fine. You can, you know, they moan about men, and then these women are far bloody worse. So, of course, she wins the case. Hurrah, you know, her name is saved. And then there's like an awkward scene where the black man tries to hit on Titania, and the feminist man looks back at She-Hulk. Don't know why, because obviously he wasn't interested in Jen, but he's interested in She-Hulk. So basically he's only after appearance, even though he's a feminist man. Again, that just doesn't make sense. Then afterwards, they're walking outside of the court, and basically the She-Hulk says to the black woman, oh, I need therapy after this. Okay, and then, you know, Jen turns around and said, let's go to the bar. Why not? We can't have an episode without getting drunk. It says something about these writers when they're constantly adding in parts of the show where they are getting drunk. So anyway, this bit really annoyed me, because basically they're mocking men, and basically they say, oh, Holloway's never had to do this, he's an incompetent man, blah blah blah. You know, I have the clip, here it is.
Holloway could never have gone through that. He's never had to prove his value to a parade of underwhelming men.
And then she was like, friend. And the black woman was like, nah, go and sort your clothes out, woman. You know what I mean? So they moan about how harsh and thingy men are, yeah, how nasty they can be, but this black woman is harsh to this woman. So you're saying it's okay for women to be absolutely critical of women, but men can't be. Again, double standards, doesn't make sense, and again, it's not in any kind of reality. You know what I mean? So then Jen realizes, oh yes, I forgot my clothes. I can go to the clothes man. Right, so she goes and gets a suit, right? She only ordered a suit. But for some reason, the clothes man, superhero clothes man, why we need a superhero clothes man, don't know. Don't know why he's doing it in secret in the top of a building somewhere in a mysterious way. Don't know. Where's he getting materials and everything from? Don't know. Surely he'd have to have a government kind of contract and have rare materials, and it will cost a lot of money. Don't know. Don't think about it. Just consume. But he gives her lawyer suit, and then basically goes, I made you something extra. Okay, cool. Right, so we don't get to see these suits at all. And then he's like, oh, this, he picks up a hat box and he's like, you know, this is confidentiality. And what do we see? Daredevil's mask. Oh no, no. So they've destroyed Wong, they've destroyed Emil Blonsky, and now they're coming for Daredevil. Oh dear, I am worried for Daredevil. I am absolutely worried. What do I think of this show? It gets worse every week. It's unhinged from any kind of reality. It is just stupid beyond any kind of point. Oh, and you know, it's destroying my mentality watching this show. As you can tell by my reviews, I am not impressed, and honestly, it's getting worse. But anyway, if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Ta-da.
This is a waste of my time and my talents.